How should we view UK immigration? We know more and more people are coming to Britain, and a huge proportion of them foreign students. But is immigration really boosting growth for the whole economy?
We've clearly seen tensions between Treasury and Number 10 over many years on things like immigration, where more immigration makes a bigger economy. Even if it doesn't make us individually better off, it does mean more money coming in to the Treasury coffers. It makes social care, it makes the higher education system easier to run, but it has other pressures which may be more political than economic.
As reform's popularity has risen, immigration has travelled up the agenda, with all the main parties now paying lip service to limiting how many people can come here.
Is it too high? Yes. Is it out of control? Yes, I'd say it is.
They're all full of hope for the future.
How many people should be allowed into the country and who they should be is an emotive debate as well as an economic one, as it was for the Windrush generation. In the 1960s and 70s, net migration was actually negative, as there were more people leaving than coming here. In fact, it wasn't until 1983 that you have a run of positive net migration figures. In the 1990s, prosperity and immigration were on the rise. And in 2004, Eastern European countries joined the EU, gaining the right to come to this country. Freedom of movement was part of the Brexit debate, but the paradox is that it's only after we left the EU that net migration jumps to record highs. Madeleine Sumption advises the government on what's really going on. Is immigration really out of control?
It depends how you think about control. Some people think about control as low numbers. In that case, we certainly don't have low numbers at the moment. But the migration that we've had, and we do have unusually high levels of migration, these are people who are coming on visas. So these are people that the government has decided to issue visas to, whether for international study, to come for work, some people coming from Ukraine or from Hong Kong.
What you don't hear from politicians from around here is that at the same time it's been deliberate government policy to boost education exports, which means selling bums on seats in UK institutions.
Well, I think what it's doing is defrauding a lot of young people who are both British nationals and international students by luring them into very often poor quality degrees.
Those on the right of the debate, like Williams, say the graduate visas act as a loophole for people who aren't adding enough to the economy.
The graduate visa is doing precisely what it was intended to do. That is to say, it is encouraging people to come here and in part finance themselves by staying on and working. So the idea that this is a loophole is simply a fiction invented by people who don't like foreigners.
If the economy was booming, maybe this debate would be more subdued. But the IFS says there's a conspiracy of silence from Labour and the Conservatives about the true malaise in our economy and what this means for the squeeze on public services in the next Parliament. And the result is that the building blocks we rely on feel under strain. For example, the number of homes being built has gone down significantly, while immigration and the overall population has grown. When it comes to trains, passenger numbers has gone up, but the rail network hasn't kept up. And then there's doctors. In the UK, we're already behind our peers when it comes to the number of doctors per head. And all of this puts pressure on the things we value, says Williams, whose think tank Centre for Policy Studies has shaped so much of recent Tory thinking.
One obvious drawback would be the effect on housing markets and the cost of living. And just to be clear, historically we've underbuilt by about 4 million houses anyway, so there's a problem regardless. But immigration on top of this exacerbates it. So that means higher house prices, higher rents. And of course, it's particularly because immigration is geographically concentrated.
If we built all of those houses, would immigration be a problem?
It would eliminate a big part of the problem, which is the housing market.
But making these kind of systemic changes would take time, far beyond an election cycle. Nigel Farage claims that reform would have a policy of targeting zero net migration. Is that plausible?
I think it's very difficult to imagine that happening, almost regardless of what you did in policy.
The UK population is now over 67 million, with 9.6 million people born outside, while 6 million are foreign nationals. At the moment, the Office for National Statistics doesn't track people as their visa status shifts or changes, or if they become British and what this means for their contribution or cost to the state. Data on ethnicity could apply to someone who's lived in Britain for 5 generations. And if you're talking about people born outside of the UK, it could even include the likes of Boris Johnson.
I think from a policy perspective, what we really need is to be able to understand how people who come in for us on a specific type of visa, how they do over time, both in the short run, and we have some data about that now, but also in the long run, including after they get permanent status and they're no longer tied to the job that they initially came in for. And currently we just have no understanding of that.
There's lots of countries like Estonia and New Zealand which have fantastic joined up government databases which we don't have. We're really behind the curve. A lot more needs to be done.
So Carl, let me ask you, if we came up with this data set, would you be open-minded about the results of this? Are you willing to be wrong about immigration?
I think you have to be. You have to be led by the evidence ultimately.
Good news then that the ONS has promised to produce clearer immigration stats from next year. Bad news, it won't be in time for this election. Instead, as the IFS warns, there's a swell of fiscal and economic problems coming in, and no certainty that there's enough of a tide of growth to float all the boats in Britain.